Director of Artistic Planning for the Kaufman Music Center, based in New York City. At Kaufman, we believe that music is essential to the human experience and vital to education for all. Through Lucy Moses School, New York's largest community music school, and Special Music School, a K-12 public school with music as its core curriculum subject, we impact thousands of students each year. We celebrate great music through our presentations at Merkin Hall, and now through online presentations such as this. We also support the next generation of composers and performers through programs like Face the Music and Luna Composition Lab. I want to thank you so much for joining us today as we explore the first half of composer Lisa Bielawa's amazing and incredible Broadcast from Home, which Kaufman was very proud to be the lead partner on in supporting. Kaufman Music Center provided audio production and students from across our programs and to participate in many of the chapters, and also created or contributed testimonies about their experiences sheltering in place during the COVID-19 pandemic. Lisa Bielawa surely needs no introduction. She's a multifaceted composer, producer, and vocalist with a celebrated career and awards ranging from the Rome Prize in Composition to the Music Award from the Academy of Arts and Letters. Please join me in welcoming Lisa.
Thanks so much, John, for that wonderful
introduction.
Hi, Lisa. Hi. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
So before we start listening to the chapters, I'm wondering if you could just speak about, I still remember early April, you calling me and saying where you were in New York City and just this impetus you had to create a work broadcast from home. Could you talk a little bit about how that started?
Sure. Yeah. You and I were in touch about other things that we were planning to do together, but like many other contexts for musicians and students and just people in the world, suddenly all of our plans got sort of swept under a rug, and people all over the world sort of found themselves at home and sort of disoriented. So because of the fact that there were such huge lurching changes happening in all of our lives, our creative lives, our personal lives, it came about pretty quickly that I realized that one of the things that was going to be really sustaining, both for myself, for the community I was in, for my colleagues, for institutions such as the Kaufman Music Center, what would be to find a way to create work, to reach out to each other and create a collaborative work from our various sheltering in place realities around the world. So that's how it started. And we launched this project with a website that invited people anywhere in the world to contribute testimonies of their experiences around the world. And then I would take those, and in a kind of a very fast process, which we're going to hear the results of, right, over the next couple of days, I turned out every week a chapter of this work that we're now calling Broadcast from Home all together. And these chapters are basically, 5 minutes or so, 3 to 5 minute long, sort of expressions of where people around the world seem to be, psychologically, emotionally, as we went through this crisis. The very first testimony was from March 23rd, which was right at the time that New York, which is where I live, was shutting down. And the entire piece was written in collaboration in a way that we'll talk about further. It was written in collaboration with this enormous community. Over 300 people from 6 continents ended up participating. And it was developed from my apartment, my several rooms in Manhattan, which I seldom left for the 4 months that I was working on this. I lived a block away from the Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. I was there throughout the time when New York was the epicenter, and I was hearing from people around the world. So, it's been a real journey, and it's incredible that I'll be able to share it with so many people today. So thank you for this opportunity.
No, it's been a bright creative light in this time. And I wonder if you could talk just a little bit more. I think the structure of how you compose the piece and how you use this moment to build the structure is also fascinating. So could you just talk through the cycle of sort of testimony to then setting to then, like, how did the structure work where you're creating a new chapter every week?
Yes, certainly. Wednesday night, I would take a look, any Wednesday night, I would take a look at what testimonies came in during the week, and I would select some phrases that I thought were salient, that maybe spoke to each other in an interesting way, that sort of gave us a picture of what was happening in people's hearts and minds that week. And then I would write little melodies, little short melodylets, fragments of melodies for voice. I set these texts. I would sing them in the morning on Thursday into my own, little recording thing. I would send the men's phrases over to Greg Pernhagen, who we'll meet tomorrow, to sing the men's phrases. And then we would pop those up on the website so that people anywhere in the world could listen to them. Even if they didn't read music, they could listen to them and they could sing them from home. So people would upload their recordings of themselves singing. Then I would do the same kind of process for instrumentalists. And I always had a sort of a team, many of which were, from Face to Music or from Manna School of Music, where I was mid-semester, with a bunch of students there. So I would write these little phrases, and I'd say probably 40% of the composition process was coming up with the right phrases that I knew would play nicely together. But really the bulk of the composing happened when I got people's voices in from around the world. So over the course of time, from like Friday all the way through Tuesday morning, I was basically composing the piece in Pro Tools, which is an audio editing software. And then I would send that over to Ben Young, or in the case of Chapter 1, Nick Rossi, who engineered Chapter 1. But then after that, Ben Young at the Kaufman Music Center every week would take my enormous session, sometimes up to 70 tracks of people singing from all over the place, playing instruments, and mix and master those. And then we'd put that up on the website, and then we'd start it all over again. Every week we did that.
The next day on a new piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should, it boggles the mind still that you did this. And
Thanks.
I think as we go into this, and I think we should take a listen to the first two chapters in just a moment. But I think revisiting this, it's amazing, this combination of a document of time as it moved forward, because you were really composing the piece in front of us as an audience as it was evolving, but also a sense of community, and that you were pulling together all these different people at different levels of music making, and just people who wanted to give testimony, and that people could sing what they were feeling, and that you would then be so fluid as a creator to pull that into a piece that kept changing it's incredible.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I think maybe we should go ahead and take a listen to the first two chapters. And then for everyone watching at home, we're going to listen to the first half of Broadcast from Home, 2 chapters at a time. And then at the end of each of those 2 chapters, we're going to welcome in a different person from around the globe who was a participant in this project, which started on April 9th and ran through 15 weeks of chapters. So with that, Lisa, thank you. And let's take a listen to Chapter 1, That Other You Still Exists, and Chapter 2, Tiny, Powerful for AS.
Thanks.
Of being at 6 and 6 Small, small, even tiny, powerful, even tiny, powerful, tiny, small, 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 tiny, small, tiny, powerful, small, tiny, exquisite, tiny, small, powerful, small, exquisite, tiny, small, powerful, small, small, even tiny, acts of service, giving a fixing a pillow, giving a ride, lifting a spoon, fixing a pillow, cooking a meal, fixing a pillow, cooking a giving a ride, fixing a pillow, fixing a
We can't come on right after these songs, Lisa. I need like a minute.
It takes me back, boy. Yeah.
It's stunning. And those two pieces, to me, it's even the dynamic from a sort of shock of what we suddenly realized we were losing, and then moving into this sort of processing of loss. And I don't know if there's anything you want to say about either of those pieces before we welcome Natalie on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say, the testimonies for those two came from people I knew because we were just starting the project. They were from people who were close by. And it was, when I listened to them, I remember this sort of growing sense that we were entering into something that was really going to change our lives. The first chapter is all about, just as you said, the sort of disorientation, the shock, just not knowing what to do with ourselves. But by the second, I had already lost somebody. It's dedicated to somebody that I knew. This was early April in New York. It was touching everybody's lives so fast. And I feel like at that time I really was getting such compassionate energy from the voices that came through. So that's a great way actually to talk a little bit about Natalie, who's coming on, because one of the things that happened was there was, suddenly an entire chorus from the University of South Florida that showed up in my inbox before chapter 2. So,
Yeah. I remember that phone call too. You were like, John, you'll never believe it. There's a choir. I have a choir from Florida. Before we bring her on, as we start bringing people in from all over the country and the world, I also wanted to just say, for all of us, everyone watching along, if you have questions, please post them in the comments, or just encouragement or thoughts or reactions, and also where you're tuning in from. Lisa, we've got people from Arizona, from San Francisco. Seth Brenzel said that he loved the phrase "kindness leads to courage." So now I would love to welcome Natalie Malice, Director of Choral Activities at University of South Florida. Her chorus was heard in Chapter 2, Tiny Powerful, and in many of the subsequent chapters. So let's welcome on Natalie now, and you guys can talk a little bit about this process. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. We just met today, so it's so great to see you too.
Right, you guys collaborated on this project, but this is the first time you're actually seeing each other today, right?
Yes.
So, Natalie, I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about what April felt like, and then being connected with this project, and just as a director of choirs, how has that been impacting your experience, and how was this project a part of that?
So for us at USF, we had just departed campus for spring break, and most people leave campus going into spring break with joyful energy, knowing they have some time to recharge and come back. And we found out close to the start of that following week that we weren't going back. And in addition to us not going back to something familiar, there was something larger and unanticipated happening in the world. And we were part of it, but we were far away enough from the epicenters that we didn't quite feel it yet. So when it became real for us, it was because we couldn't create simultaneously together. And so for choirs, it was simply devastating. That's the place we come together and establish community and share in a oneness, doing the thing that we love most. And without that, we felt isolated, but in a very different way, and also felt that our passion couldn't be fueled. And so we had to find a way to do that. And so I was thankful that I read an NPR article and I saw this composer, Lisa Bielawa, who was trying to find ways that artists could channel their creativity in response to COVID-19. And I sent an email, and here we are, collaborating together.
Amazing.
And I wonder if you could both talk about this journey of, going from singing in isolation to then how you guys work together on essentially creating a chorus, a virtual chorus, and what was that experience like? I guess technically, Lisa, for you in craft, but also just emotionally for both of you, if you can remember what that was like.
Well, I will say that, Natalie is a wonderful director, and I can say that because I was able to hear the voices, all of these different young singers, a lot of singers who are clearly, not professionals, or, Natalie, you have a broad range of voices, levels of experience, but they're all healthy. These voices are all healthy, and I felt such, and I could feel phrasing, real singing of words, And one of the things I've always done in this project from the beginning is I've never required anybody to be following a click track or to be trying to sing along with other people through their speakers or through their laptops, because part of what we miss is just, the feeling of making music with our bodies in a space. So everybody who recorded from Natalie's choir, they just recorded in their apartments or dorm rooms, wherever, onto a cell phone and sent it to me. And so my lining it up, I absorbed the task of creating meaningful relationships, in time with, from what I got. I took that on afterwards. I didn't require them to adhere to a time map so that they could be human beings with human voices, And
there's an element of rawness that we appreciated, during this part of the collaborative artistic process, because
Mm.
our students are free thinkers, and I believe it's important we continue to encourage them by providing them platforms which allows them to be expressive and able to share their ideas. And so when they would get these fragments, we found ourselves working backwards. So usually in choir, one of the benefits is not only do you have text, but you get to see all the parts at the same time. So you know how things weave in, and you know where to expect to be harmonically rich or melodically rich. And in this case, we got to see fragments, and students got to sing it and express themselves the way they felt and how they interacted with the words. And it wasn't until the chapter would be posted that we would sort of listen together and react to this music we created. It was profoundly moving each time in a very different way.
That's cool.
Well, Natalie, it is an honor to have you joining us, and it's so wonderful to finally be able to put a face with the choir that we were hearing earlier in this pandemic. Thank you so much for joining us, and I think we're going to continue hearing your choir as we go forward into Chapter 3, The New Abnormal, and Chapter 4, I Miss All That. So let's all listen to those together now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natalie.
A pleasure.
I don't wanna watch you concert on the screen. I don't wanna meet you for happy hour online. I wanna sit across from you, next to you, behind you, in front of you. Across from you,
Across from you,
next to you,
next to you, behind you, in front of you.
across from you, next to you, behind you,
We're all strangers in a strange life.
in front of you.
Lost and gloved and everyone looks like themselves.
We're all strangers in a strange land. We're all strangers in a strange land. No one looks like themselves. No one looks like themselves right now. No one looks like themselves right now.
What if this is our new normal forever?
Careless people in their 20s and 30s aren't wearing masks and won't stand far enough away.
Everyone wants to go back to normal. There's a lot of
Why are people hoarding and wasting?
I never has a.
I know I get all the rich people.
Why are people hoarding and wasting? Careless people in their 20s and 30s aren't wearing masks and won't stand far enough away. Across from you. Next to you. Behind you. Next to you. Behind you. Across from you. Next to you. Behind you. In front of you. In front of you.
Across from you,
Across from you.
next to you,
Next to you.
behind you, in front of you.
You did it again.
Oh man.
I should take a moment to note, while we do have these stunning animations for some of the chapters, they don't all have animations. So
Yes.
sometimes we'll be listening, just listening, and sometimes we'll be experiencing the animation. Like everything else about this project, it's in process, right? And which is one of the most incredible things about it. Yeah, Lisa, that was just, I love the way that you capture this idea of sort of disconnection and a sort of revulsion to screens in the first, in chapter 3. I don't want to watch a concert on a screen, yet here we are.
I love that.
And then at Shift, I miss all that, and that beautiful choir again of Natalie's. And I want to now welcome the accomplished writer Edith Knight McGough, who's perhaps the most physically distant of the participants in Broadcast from
Probably.
Home. The testimony she contributed is coming all the way to us, and she is coming to us all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. And so she's going to be joining us now. Welcome, Edith.
Hi, Edith. Yay. So great to see you.
It's wonderful to have you here. And just before that, when we were listening, I know Lisa, you and Edith were talking about I Miss All That. And do you want to talk just a little bit about Edith's words and what struck you about it? And Edith, what it's like to hear your writing set to music?
Well, I think I'll just jump in by saying, Edith, it's great to meet you. I mean, we also came, we're going to find out in a second how Edith found the project. I have no idea. So we're meeting now. And when I saw, this is about the time that the project started to have international, people came in writing testimonies from Brazil, and I saw yours come in from Nairobi. I thought, and I saw this description of sort of the yearning that Edith was feeling at home. I thought, man, that's so different and so the same as what I'm feeling and what so many people are feeling. So I think it's, and as it turns out, of course, I had Natalie's entire, 55 singers on your words, Edith, at that moment. Beautiful.
Oh, Edith, I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
We hear you very faintly.
Still very, very faint.
Not too much. Oh, now your microphone is off. I know.
Sorry.
Try again. There we go.
Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Sorry about
Beautiful.
that.
That's okay.
Yes, so John, you were saying something?
Oh, just if you want to talk a little, I'm just curious what it was like to hear those words set to music and that experience of writing that, and then what it's like to hear that.
Okay, so as I was saying earlier, I sort of just stumbled upon the Broadcast from Home project. I think it popped out on my Twitter search, and as a writer, so I was intrigued, and I went to the website and I was reading all this testimonies, and they always say the world is a global village, but I think this pandemic made it more of a global village than any other thing. So I could relate to the testimonies, and when it came to chapter 4, I miss all that. So it was April. For us, April in Kenya was, I think the rest of the maybe Western world had started dealing with it earlier, but for us in April is when, it got home. So I was, we had just started our lockdown. We could not have social gatherings. I was missing my friends, and I could see them. I could be with them, just how you're with friends and you make a joke and you just totally collapse on them and laugh and punch them and do all these, crazy things with them. So it felt freeing to write that. And as you asked, Joe, hearing my words set in music, that was such a profound moment for me. I've never had my words being sung ever, ever, ever.
Wow.
So it was a very big moment for me. And to know that, this was an archive. They're not just words that are going to be lost after, a week or two, because it's in music. It's going to be archived, hopefully forever, if Lisa, you don't delete them.
Oh, of course. How could I? How could I?
Yeah, so it was really a special, spiritual even moment for me. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, maybe this needs to become a habit. Maybe your words need to be set to music more often.
I mean, I was going to say, once Edith popped up in my inbox, I did cyber stalk you a little bit, and Edith's a wonderful writer. I've read a few more stories, and it's just, I don't know, just so grateful that that there were other sort of creative, deeply sort of emotionally awake people around the globe who reached out to each other in this way. I feel so grateful to you for finding me, for finding the project, and for sharing that, because as you can hear, it really inspired something. That really kept me going. Testimonies like that. Yeah.
And Edith, your words are really and Lisa, correct, it's really the second half of I Miss All That, right? Is really that's all
yeah.
Edith's words, right?
I would
Including
love
the
to walk
title.
with my friends across town, go to the market and haggle over prices, sit with them and argue over every little thing, and hug them goodbye.
Yes, yes,
Beautiful.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, totally beautiful. Well, Edith, would you like to share with us any writing projects you have going on right now, or anything that's recently been published that people could read?
Well, yes, but before that, again, I'd like to thank you, Lisa, so much for, featuring me in this. It was a big deal for me. It was a big moment for me. I shared it with my entire family. I've made them listen to it
great.
like thousands of times.
Oh, wonderful.
I so it's been like a moment of fame for me. So thank you so much. And thank you for doing this. So yes, I've been doing just freelance short stories writing. They're mostly on my Twitter page. So my Twitter page is at Edith Night. So if anybody wants to check it out, they could find my stories there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Edith. It's that choral work, I remember when it first came in, and it was just such a powerful moment, and we're so grateful to have you here. And I think
I'm so happy to meet you, to know you now. So
yeah.
Yes, me too.
Well, I think with this, we're going to move forward and listen to chapters 5 and chapter 6. Chapter 5, Are We What Happens? And chapter 6, Morning Again. And so let's take a listen.
Thanks, Edith.
I was finally getting my life on track. I was finally getting my life on track. I was figuring out who I am. I saw a future for myself. Maybe I can act as if there is no rush now. One chess piece at a time. In divine timing, there is no rush. That itself is Is this what happens? Are we what happens? There is no rush, Lord. I need to make this small decision. simultaneously. Is this what happens? Are we what happens? Is this what happens? Are we what happens? Is this what happens? Are we what happens? Is this what
Morning again. It's not over yet. Morning again. It's not over yet.
Morning again.
It's not over yet.
It's not over yet.
It's not over We are dangerously old.
Morning again.
Waiting for the mail. 6 feet apart. There are no stores. There are no stores. No businesses here. Starting with my hands. Coming over place around the corner. Completely changed. No job to return to.
No friends to speak with in
No next train. No street with trying to avoid people.
next train.
Morning again.
Wow.
Yeah. We're into May now. I can remember. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes me think about time and
Yeah.
both these pieces being about time. And I'm wondering if we can nerd out really hardcore for just a second, because in
Absolutely.
addition to you pulling these strands of individual performances into this piece, it's almost hard to remember that that's how it's made when you're listening. But in addition to all that, can you talk about the musical ways you're playing with time and Are We What Happens? Because I
Sure.
know there's the speeding up, but there's also something going on with reversing, right?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I saw that testimony come in, and I saw a bunch of testimonies come in that actually started to be more cognitive than emotional. What was happening to people was that they were sort of numb emotionally after 5 or 6 weeks in lockdown. But we all started to lose our sense of time somewhere around early May. People just started to just lose their, it started to feel it on a cognitive level. And and that was amazing. So I wanted to sort of reflect that musically. I feel like I'm going in reverse. I mean, what I ended up doing is I actually wrote a canon, like a round, like Frere Jacques. I wrote a 4-part canon that works backwards. So you hear my voice, it's actually me singing. I feel like I'm going in reverse, and it goes in reverse. So, and I had to piece together the canon because, of course, the string players are not playing together. So I gave them the little tiny 2 measures at a time, and I stuck them all together, in that one. And then also the different tempos. And I know we're going to talk to the players a little bit about that, but I started playing with giving the players an enormous amount of freedom about sort of what tempo they want to play in. And then I would just kind of use that sort of on the back end, not knowing how fast they were going to play anything. And find the relationships between them. And actually, before we talk to the players, I want to mention that's the last of those wonderful type animations that we're going to see. But those type animations came about as a result of something very similar to what Natalie talked about. Cynthia Flaxman, who teaches graphic design at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte, came to me with her graduate seminar on type animations. And she actually had, these are the result of another sort of school that a program that was interrupted mid semester that and an educator who wanted somehow to have her students engage directly with what was happening. And so that's the source of all these. We're going to continue to collaborate as we move into the next semester with her and some of her students. So you can see the names of the individual animators in the comments, but it's really been tremendous to have these contributions. So, and what you just heard, they're so vivid. Those 2 chapters you just heard featured musicians from both Face the Music and Manus, both of them. So I just wanted to mention that, collaboration between the two.
And I think we have 2, I think we have 2 musicians from there now, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to welcome on Ben Barham-Weiss, who's a Kaufman Music Center student and also a member of Face the Music, and Federico Ramirez from the Manus School of Music. Both of them are heard on many of the tracks you're hearing, not just the 2 we just heard. So, hi Federico, hi Ben.
Hi guys.
Hi, hello.
So nice to see you all.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so fierce hearing that playing. So great to hear you guys and now see you.
It's crazy.
So, unlike some of these earlier meetings, which were like first time meetings, you guys have seen each other's faces a fair amount, right? Could you talk a little bit about how you guys collaborated and coaching with Lisa on these instrumental parts, and how was it working with a composer online for a piece that was being composed as you were rehearsing it?
Well, I thought it was very interesting to be able to work in this kind of setting because I found just how similar it was to like an in-person coaching. Like, even though we had the same limitations over Zoom of like internet connection, but I felt we were able to still talk about the essence of the work and how we can incorporate things like bow strokes and intonations, sound quality, and tempi, and then to actually have our instruments out over Zoom and try these different elements and get feedback directly from Lisa. I thought it was very interesting that it felt very close to an in-person coaching. And in that respect, it was a very rewarding experience to be able to work in this way.
Oh, great. Federico, by the way, was a cellist in 2, 4, 5, and 6. So you've heard him in 4 of these already.
For me, this was my first project that I had started doing in the beginning of quarantine, like recording remotely, that turned into, now I've done a lot more, but this was kind of my first adventure in recording and being like, oh, I actually shouldn't put my phone like a millisecond away from my drums because it's not going to sound good. So I had a lot of experience like that, like learning how to record, because I never really done that before. Something that was very special for me for this was not having to play with a click or like not trying to be in sync, because I feel like now with other projects it's all about like syncing it up, and like if you're like a hair off the click, the whole thing is ruined. But like this, it like thrived off of the almost rawness, I would say, and also the fact that we got a lot of artistic liberty, like, oh, play it at whatever tempo you want. Like, here are a part that's a suggestion, but like, you can really do what you want with it. It was really cool to work in that sense, and to be able to have a weekly meeting where we ourselves, the players, could make suggestions, and we would really like have a dialogue going, which was really awesome.
It was wonderful to collaborate with you, Ben. You know, in the case of percussionists that I worked with on this project, I had to start with the question, well, what do you have at home? Right? Ben had a xylophone, and you can hear him wailing at the end of chapter 3, you know, on the xylophone. So I was lucky that way. But other things in your part, I said, you know, hit stuff. Remember that?
Yes.
I don't know what you have, just stuff. You know, we talk about what kind of sound I wanted. I mean, you know, this is what we were all working with, what we had at home, you know. Yeah, and Federico, there were some times when I gave you cello stuff patterns, and I said, play this, either this tempo, anywhere from this tempo to that tempo, and the range was enormous, and you could just choose whatever tempo you wanted, right? We heard some of that. And
yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's like I got the same kind of feeling of like working with a living composer, where I just get those immediate kind of changes of like what I could contribute to the work. Which I thought it was interesting. I could just do it from my room and do it's like it was funny. It was like I was just at home, but it's like I had this like community of other musicians, and then
that's great.
You, Lisa.
Yeah, tremendous. Well, that was the hope. So I'm glad. I really enjoyed working with both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a very unlike anything else in the best way possible experience I've had in a long time.
That's great, Ben. Thanks.
Very perfectly put. That's exactly how I would feel as well. It's just, it's been just a pleasure to be able to connect with so many other people from so many different parts of the world, and to all come together for this cause, and to feel connected through this pandemic and through this quarantine through music, which I think is a very, very powerful way of connecting.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful to you both. Such huge contribution to the project, both of you. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, and you guys both, just having all of you in our ears each week as we were processing and going through this in the spring was just such a light. So I think we're going to move on, and we're going to listen to the last 2 chapters for today's listening event. So we're going to listen to chapter 7, Look Up and Look Around, and we're going to listen to the cliffhanger chapter at the end of our listening event today, titled appropriately, Who Knows? So let's go listen to those now.
Reach out to old friends, look around for a minute, try to make something good, build, create, reflect, express, clean your closets, shine your shoes, read a book. Reach out to old friends, look around for a minute, try to make something good, build, create, reflect, express, meditate, clean your house, make your the world that's around us.
Life is a mess right now. It is a mess. while it is a mess right now, out of all the sadness, I don't know all the reasons, amid the gloom and doom. I don't know all the reasons.
While it is a mess right now, out of all the sadness, I don't know all the reasons. While it is a mess right now, out of all the sadness, I don't know all the reasons. Amid the gloom and doom, I don't know all the reasons. Amid the gloom and doom. Try to make something good. It is a mess right now.
Try to make something good.
Look up and look around.
Look around for a minute. Reach out to friends. Look around for a minute. Try to make something good.
Something calls my name.
Something has a thrill inside me.
Out of all the sadness,
Appreciate the world that's around us. While it is a mess right now,
out of all the sadness, it is really beautiful.
while it is a mess right now, out of all the sadness, it is really beautiful.
Appreciate the world that's around us.
I don't know all the reasons. It is really beautiful.
It is a mess right now.
Amid the gloom and doom,
It is a mess right now.
First it was March, then May, and now June. Will July be next? Who knows? Who knows?
When will it end?
Will July be next? Who knows?
I miss the way and where we can go
I miss the way where we can go outside and feel free. I don't really need anything with this video. Already no escape from my shoebox with paper thin walls. It doesn't matter what there will be. We will get out of this and investigate further.
We're already discovering the shows and everything walls. It's another way to fix the keep getting further and further away. When will it end? What's next?
Will we get to vote by May? We better
That's the way and where we can go outside and feel free. I don't see anything like this to be over already. No escape from my shoebox with papers and walls. It is inevitable that there will be a better way, but this thing pushes the case further and further away. I miss the way and where we can go outside and feel free. I don't see anything like this to be over already. No escape from my shoebox with papers and walls. It is inevitable that there will be a better way, but this thing keeps getting further and further away. Yeah, it's weird. It brings me back every time we hear one. I just remember exactly what was happening, you know?
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about that in connection to the cheering we hear at the end of chapter 8?
Yes.
It's coming through there a little bit. Not all of us were living through it in New York.
Right. Well, you
yeah.
hear this the first time I actually use field audio. We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow too. But the first time I used field audio was in chapter 3. And you hear the sound of my fire escape at 7 p.m. And this is when we all, were banging on pot lids to thank the first, the first responders and the medical workers. In fact, you hear that also here, field audio. You hear that exactly. You hear that at the end of chapter 8 as well. And I decided that I wanted to include it again because it was 5 weeks later and it sounded different, actually. When you hear it in chapter 3, it has a desperate and kind of frantic, crazy energy to it. Brittle, there's a lot of fear in it. And then 5 weeks later, chapter 8, there's this hope, because we really had started to flatten the curve in New York. This was in mid-late May. It was a very different feeling. And in my apartment, you could actually see there. I mean, I'm a block from the hospital. There were medical workers walking on the street. So I'm on the 5th floor. I banged my thing. I could wave at them. We really were thanking them right there. And so that's the cacophony you hear at the end of both of those chapters.
Yeah.
Every night for 4 months, Yeah.
Yep. It was like a beautiful and painful ritual, I feel like, being in New York and going through it. But it was. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share with us this afternoon before we sign off for this first part? I think we're just about ready to wrap up, but I'm wondering if there's any other thoughts you want to share or anything else.
I mean, I guess what I would just point out in chapters 7 and 8 is there was a time there towards the end of May when you can hear that everybody was really trying to start, figuring out how to find some positive thinking and a way to give themselves hope, reach out to old friends or, someday that we're going to be able to throw our masks away and hope it's not cloudy. And, people really started to pick themselves up in weeks 7 and 8, trying to just find the strength within them to bring positive, to energize themselves in a positive way. So it's interesting to hear that.
Well, and I think you creating this platform and this project for people to engage with and create with is absolutely doing the same thing and has done the same thing, I think, through the whole event. So
well, it's done that for me too. So
well, there's a line in there that stuck out that is very pertinent now is, will we be able to vote by mail?
Yes.
That sort of stuck out in that last chapter 8.
Yeah,
So I was like,
that was May. They were asking that already in May. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for this
Thank you,
project,
John.
for your work, and for today. And I thank all of you for joining us and listening to the first half of this event of Lisa Bielawa's Broadcast from Home project. As you've seen from today, the ensembles and individuals and writers who created testimonies and performances there, it's just too numerous for us to name unless we spent another hour listing them all. Everyone from the New Amsterdam Singers to Fifth House Ensemble, Manna School of Music, University of South Florida Choral Singers, and many, many more. They're all credited in the comment feed, as well as all the animators, which Lisa referred to. Broadcast from Home, I need to give a couple shout outs. Broadcast from Home has been made possible with financial support from Nancy and Joe Walker, from Jim Rosenfield, and also one other anonymous donor. And thank you for your help in realizing this. A huge, enormous round of thanks to Christina Jensen,
Yes.
who was and her team, the driver behind this whole project as well, and today's event, and also tomorrow's. And I know Mick Rossi, obviously mixing and mastering Chapter 1, and I have to give a huge shout out to Ben Young,
Yes.
our home team mixer and masterer and a brilliant recording engineer at Kaufman, for all his work on this. You can always revisit Broadcast from Home on Lisa Bielawa's site, lisabielawa.net. All of the tracks are there for free and always available to listen to. Tomorrow, please join us back here on the Kaufman Music Center page, again at 2 o'clock, and we'll listen to the second half of these 15 chapters of Broadcast from Home. Also, please join us. We have digital offerings from Kaufman. Our next one is August 16th. We'll be presenting a thrilling program by Jack Quartet from Merkin Hall Direct to Your Home, with works by Clara Ianota, Marcos Balter, Zosha DeCastri, Anthony Braxton, and George Lewis. You can find out more about that and also ways you can take online instruction with us at kaufmanmusiccenter.org. And just one more big thank you for everyone who's joining us, and one more big thank you to you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thanks to everybody.
All right,
Share this with you.
goodbye.
Bye.